Welcome to the Jump Shots from the Goal Line podcast. I am your host, Jonathan Dugan. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Jonathan Henningsen. Guys, before we get started on the show, we obviously did want to take just a quick moment to pay our respects to the victims of the latest atrocity. I'm not even going to just call it a school shooting, but just an absolute atrocity that went down in Texas. Losing any form of life, let alone children and a teacher, is just awful and unnecessary. So we did want to take this brief moment just to pay our respects. John, I know you probably have a few words to say on this one too, right?
Yeah, we just wanted to acknowledge it. Obviously, we just didn't want to feel like we were completely tone deaf here. Obviously, we want to talk about sports, keep it light, and we'll get to that. But hey, teachers are a part of my family, my life. Kids are a part of everyone's lives, and so again, it's another tragedy, another atrocity. I think we all know what it is, but rather than fight over what the solution is today, we'll just keep it sports related. But we just want to make sure we touched on it, so we're not completely unaware of the world.
Absolutely. Well said, John. Well, hey guys, we're jumping in further and further into these NBA playoffs. Obviously, the second round is done and over. It's been done and over for about a week now. I guess that's just what you guys get for listening to a bi-weekly podcast. Maybe that'll change one day. Who knows? Maybe if we get more listeners, it will. But we're deep in the thick of just the conference championships right now. Obviously, the Warriors are definitely kind of taking care of business, except for this last game, which, obviously you go up 3-0 in a series. It's easy to kind of have a stinker there at the end. And then, the Celtics and the Heat series is, pretty back and forth, but with the Celtics taking, a big dub tonight over the Heat. John, what are your thoughts so far on the current round of the playoffs?
So, one, I like that you're taking aim directly at our listeners immediately. Like, this is what you get for listening
right.
bi-weekly.
Listen,
Yeah,
guys, hey,
that's good.
I have a 2-year-old and a wife, and the wife doesn't exactly love that I do this. But if I had more listeners, I guarantee the wife would be okay with it. So tell your friends, tell your family, throw it on Facebook. Lord knows there's a million people there. Let people know about this podcast. I would love to do this more than twice a month, every 2 weeks. All right, I'm off my soapbox.
All right. Yeah, beautiful. So you've upset your wife, you've upset your child,
and now I've upset the listeners.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, you nailed it. So well done. But yeah, as far as the two series that we have going, I think we can start with Heat Celtics, just because I just watched that, and boy, is that thrilling. I mean, that's a rock fight. It's really tough.
93 to 80. Definitely a rock fight.
Oladipo out there, really counting on him to shoot. He's missing rim. Jimmy Butler really doesn't look healthy. Tyler Hero's out. Lowry's not healthy. Bam Adebayo is kind of, he's dependent on others to get him going, even though he does initiate some offense for them. He's not really like go get his own shot guy. So Heat are just really struggling. I mean, I think we've seen that Celtics defense is tough. We knew that coming into the series, and you've seen that on both sides. If you like, it really reminded me of, like, it's not as physical, but it feels like those old Heat Knicks. Like, seeing the Heat score 80 points reminds me of being a kid. But watching him do it against the Celtics is just a little different, I guess.
You're definitely aging yourself right now.
Yeah, that's okay. People do the math and get back at me. It's no shame here, but I mean, honestly, it's just a tough watch with that series. Like, just no one seems healthy, and man, we'll get into it, but I feel like, actually, let me just say this. You know what stinks, because this continues to happen year after year, is it just comes down to this. Like, it becomes this who's
every
healthy,
year, dude.
Just like the NFL, and like, I don't remember it. Like, the NBA just wasn't like that before. I mean, I felt like you had everybody at full strength. Like, yes, there'd be the occasional injury, and not to say that there was never an injury in these series, but it has been, the last few years is very different. And if you're healthy, you can you can be a winner, which is why you want to kind of stay in that conversation of that top 8, top 10, because you never know the draw you're going to get, and you might just walk right into a championship.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Suns last year, right? We're Suns fans, and we obviously love our Suns. We'll get into that later. But, the argument can be made last year in the playoffs. Injuries played a huge part in their success, right? I mean, Anthony Davis going down in the first round, Jamal Murray second round, Kawhi Leonard in the third round, and we're kind of seeing that this year too. You're absolutely right. I think what it stems from, and I think a lot of older basketball players will tell you this, is I think the advent of AAU basketball being a huge part of any basketball player's life very early on, and just having the grind of basketball season year round, and not having that break and not playing different sports. And I think a lot of the guys that we're seeing nowadays, the people, the rookies, the second, third year players that grew up in a system like that where they were, growing up in the AAU circuit, I think that's why we're seeing a lot more injuries nowadays, is because their bodies are they have a lot more miles on them by this point of their career than guys did maybe, when we were growing up.
Yeah. And don't play just one sport. I mean, I think the science is out on that,
Right.
Mix it up with your muscles. But I mean, I do. I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's almost just like a sports science episode about like, why do these break down, which I'm definitely not qualified to do that. Just like a lot of the things we're talking about. Am I qualified? No. But as far as the injuries go, it's just been tough. And I really like, that's just what the series kind of comes down to me. And we continue to see blowout this way, blowout that way. So it's like injury riddled 3-point contests with bad shooting. So I don't know. It's not a great series. It hasn't been a great watch. I fully expect the Celtics to close out just from simply being a little bit healthier, a little bit younger. They seem to be able to mix and match their guys a little better. Shoot, man, I don't have much else to say on this series. It hasn't been really exciting. The one thing I'll just say is I've been like keenly watching Bam Adebayo just because I'm on full Ayton alert, which we'll get to. And so I'm kind of watching these other bigs just to kind of see, what have I not evaluated? What am I not looking at differently? Mm-hmm. And so I'm just watching the series like a sicko now, and there's really not much interest in it other than, weird stuff that I'm into.
Definitely, man. I found it funny tonight. I was on Twitter and, perpetual troll, Joel Embiid put a tweet out there saying the Heat need a third superstar. And I'm looking at their roster right now, and obviously, like, you can make the argument that maybe Bam's a superstar, right? Like, I mean, when the guy's on, he's very, very good. Can get the assists, can obviously rebound, can play good defense.
It's like a top 50 guy,
okay scorer. But if Joel thinks they need a third superstar, who is really? Well, I mean, I guess Jimmy Butler, right? Is that who he's thinking? Is like Jimmy Butler and Bam?
Yeah, I think so. Or maybe, I don't know. I think a healthy Lowry is still like a nice piece that, he's a champion and, has played on some big games. So I don't know. I'm seeing that too. And I'm just like, because I saw like Matt Barnes put it out there. Hey, like Heat fans, would you move Bam and Hero to bring Joel Embiid? And I'm just like, that made me laugh because I'm like, so we're just going to keep like in the East, we're just going to keep trading same bad parts for bad parts.
It's like musical chairs.
I'm like, we're going to do this. Yeah. Like, I'm like, everybody's just going to be in musical chairs with the Sixers. And so like the Sixers are just forever processing and in the process till the end of time, continually like just perpetually disappointing their fans while other teams get equally disappointing parts because they have to trade away all their assets. I don't know. That one just generally makes me laugh. And I don't know, but I do like that Embiid's just out there trolling. That's the best part of the NBA. Really, dude. Is just the drama. Like, just honestly, just give me to. I mean, hopefully we get a good finals, but at this point, I'm kind of like, just give me to the off season. Like that seems to be where this league makes its mark. That's where the money's made here. Or I kind of like doing the fashion stuff after the games, before the games, like. Tyler Hero looking fresh tonight, wearing all white linens. I know you saw the Aladdin get up you had post game, earlier in the series.
Yeah.
I don't really know if any of these things are actually cool, but it just makes me laugh, and at least there's like fodder for conversation there because that's how interesting the series has been. I'm like, well, we could
Dude,
talk about their clothes.
you're talking to a guy that he literally like I will literally wear basketball shorts and a t-shirt everywhere I go. So the idea of caring about the fashion of the players before and after games is it's just not anything I'm interested in. So
Yeah. No, that checks
dude,
out. I mean, I just spent, I got fitted for a tux for a wedding and spent my entire week complaining to my friends that suits are worthless and stupid. I'm very much a jeans and a t-shirt guy. So the fact that I'm commenting on it is I'm not even really sure what that says or what I'm trying to say. Uh, I think it just tells you where the series is at.
yeah, dude, Kyle Lowry having 0 points on over 6 shooting
That's
and
your
not an
superstar.
assist and 5 fouls in a playoff game. Tough look, dude. Like I know like obviously very well accomplished player, right? Like has won
He's banged
championships,
up.
but yeah, I guess that's all it is, right? Like there
I
and then
think so. I
Jimmy,
think he's got the CP thing going, man. It's like it's one of
yeah,
these muscles. He's not moving right. He doesn't look good. They still seem like better when he's in there, but
yeah.
just because they're giving him direction, but there's nothing dynamic about his game right now. He looks
And Jimmy
slow. He looks a little
Butler's
heavy.
playing Jimmy Butler's
He's
playing on
dog
one
tired
knee
too.
out there playing 40 minutes,
Yeah,
man.
he looks.
Like
That's what it just looks like. It's sad. It's just a bunch of guys that I know. Like, because Jimmy Butler in game one, right, looked great. Like he drops 40, and I'm like, damn, I'm sleeping on Jimmy. And then he's hurt, and now it's terrible. And
yeah.
and now Bam's relying on either guards that aren't in the lineup. They're like hunting shots with Duncan Robinson, who is deep on their bench all of a week ago. And
Yeah.
like Jimmy's like deferring to him now, and they're looking for him to, hey, we're down 25. Do you want to bail us out, Duncan? And he's got to be going like, you're kidding me, right? Um,
Yeah. Dude,
it's pretty unwatchable.
yeah, I was gonna say let's just talk about it real quick because before the show started, you and I were both saying that the playoffs right now. We're not saying the previous 2 rounds, right? But the round that we're in now it's pretty terrible. Like you have this series where it's just 2 teams that are perpetually injured. The Heat, we just went over all their injury issues, but then like you look at the Celtics and one day Robert Williams is playing, the next day he's not. Al Horford had COVID at one point. Marcus Smart is like in and out. Like just a weird series. Like it's not enjoyable to watch.
And when they aren't actually falling over from injury, they're faking and flopping. So there's always someone on the ground. I'm never convinced anybody's hurt until they're hurt. And then it's just been it's bad. And there has been some numbers out there where you were actually on this pretty early. Like I don't know how much it made it to the pod, but I definitely know that you were messaging me a lot about why so many blots, so many blots, so many blots.
Oh, I
And there's
mentioned it.
numbers on
Yeah.
it. Yeah, like none of these games have been close. The clutch minutes, quote unquote, are way down series over series. The first round was really the best round, and it's pretty much been on a descent from that point. And I guess the watchable, or at least to me, the more watchable series actually still has. At least people are healthy in the Warriors Mavs series, so at least there's something to talk about there. I feel like we're getting, for the most part, the best of those 2 teams. At least a heck of a lot closer. I mean, Iggy's out. I guess there's
Yeah.
some names you could talk about, but for the most part,
But
those teams are healthy. So at least it's basketball.
but are we really like I know we're U of A guys, like Arizona guys, but are we really worried about the corpse of Andre Iguodala at this point? Like he's
No,
not
but
doing anything for that series.
yeah, I mentioned it. Yeah, I only mentioned him to say that at least in that series, we're getting like the dude. So there's really no excuses
Yeah.
for Dallas.
Valid.
There's no excuses for Golden State in any of these games. Like these are 2 teams that are really playing, and I think we're ultimately seeing, Dallas is just a bit overmatched. The
Yeah.
Warriors are
Weird.
back, although I feel like, and I said this early on, I feel like they got the really good draw. Really haven't had to face anybody who would give them problems. Basically, who would potentially give them problems would be bigs, right? I think a DeAndre Ayton is the guy that gives them problems. A Bam Adebayo is a guy who maybe gives them
Mhm.
problems because he gives you like type minutes to Looney and Draymond with a little more size and maybe a little more scoring. But they're not facing that. Instead, they're getting the Mavs who are want to play small, and Golden State's like, cool, like
Yeah.
great. we invented small ball. I mean, which they
Yeah,
didn't, of course, but in the new era, I mean, that's
they
how we
perfected
define
it.
small ball is. Yeah, exactly right. The lineup of death, and they're just playing it all game long. And so, I don't know. I love the NBA, but this has been
It's pretty
just
bad
kind of
right now.
tough. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah, they're
I
down
mean,
bad.
outside of that game last night, right? The Mavericks have not done anything, and they have not played at all like the team that played Phoenix, right? Credit to Golden State. They've done a lot of good things, increasing the pace of the game, not letting Dallas get into their sets, defensively. And that's really kind of stunted what Dallas did against Phoenix and made them dangerous. And then obviously, right, like Golden State just has the talent to just go shot for shot, right? And that's something that we didn't see in the last round against Phoenix. So, like I was saying, outside of that game last night where they go up, how much did they go up? 29 at one point, the Mavericks did,
Yeah,
and
they had a
then
healthy lead, and it got interesting again. But
it
yeah,
got all the
they
way
did
down
have
to
a.
8.
Yep, they had it down to 8. Kuminga knocks down a 3. They brought it back, and you're like, well, kept my eyes open, kept on
Yeah.
it, but I don't know. To me, that series is just about because I do think it's funny about how I do. There's always like this narrative with the Warriors where it's always talk about everybody but Steph, but I don't know why. Like he drives that engine. He's the only guy we should be talking about. You mentioned the corpse of Andre Iguodala. The guy steals his MVP when Steph's out there dropping 30 every night, running around every screen, pulling the gravity of the defense everywhere he twitches. And then we go, I don't know, man. Andrew Wiggins, former number 1 pick, is he a Hall of Famer? Like, it's so weird how we do this. Like, I mean, obviously, we could talk about just the dunk. I mean, that was great.
Yeah.
It literally, of course,
The
Luka
dunk that didn't
flops,
count.
of course. Yeah, like what shockingly, Luka flops and he becomes entirely unwatchable. And we could just do that again if you want. I'm really just happy. I mean, basically that series is just like a small victory lap for us, at least talking all the smack about Luka. Certainly he got the Suns, and so he gets the last laugh on the season. But I'll gladly take all the people who are telling me he's that dude, Mamba mentality, Jordan, which by the way, like I'm so sick of that. Like, stop, just stop. No one has to be
Stop
Kobe or
comparing players
Jordan.
to players. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, like just come up with something new. Like nothing about what Luka's doing feels Mamba mentality to me. Is he a great player? Yes. Is he going to continue to be great? Yeah, very likely. However, look, there's no apples to apples with him and Michael Jordan. There's no apples to apples with him and Kobe Bryant. And I know that's what we want to do, and that's how our brains work. We want to put things in a box.
Yep.
But just as much as I'm wrong in calling him James Harden, and people tell me that's tired and washed, so is the Jordan look right now. So is the Larry Bird look right now. Like all those things look tired and washed when he gets some big bodies defending him. Everybody else just kind of walls off theirs, and you're like, go ahead, Luka, chuck away. You're not going to be able to do it by yourself.
Can you do me a favor and like forward me on Twitter, like the people calling Luka MJ or calling him Larry Bird? Because like, what are people seeing? Like, look, at the end of the day, like,
Gottlieb's on the Bird one. That's Gottlieb. Gottlieb's like really
total
on. Yeah.
sense. Makes
Yeah,
total
Gottlieb's
sense.
on the Bird one, which sometimes I really don't know if he's real or just a character.
Yeah. Or have you
But then like just in the
still
mentions,
stealing credit card numbers?
Yeah. Yeah, which you got to take that free shot on him. But like forgive and forget. I moved on that one. But he can just be a pest on Twitter, and I think sometimes he just does some things. But there is, if you dig into those mentions, you can go through I mean, it'll be, well, just wait. You're going to be wrong about him. You're going to be wrong about him. And it may be, right? Like, it's obviously easy to always play the game of, well, come at me when you get to 6 championships. I'm not trying to say that either. But at the same time, what about him is Mamba mentality? What about him is Jordan?
Yeah.
I don't really see those connections either. So I don't know. It's weird. NBA Twitter is what it is. I just laugh at it, poke, prod, jab. people jab back. I try to normally let them know I'm kidding and that we're having a good time and move on.
Yeah, NBA Twitter is pretty great, though, I will say. I just think it's, for my own sake, I think I do want to go down the rabbit hole just seeing, like I said, forward me those tweets that say that he is MJ because I would love to see their logic. I'm definitely one of the people that will go on Twitter and just be like, why do you think that? And just see what they say. So, that's
we can
always
keep
fun.
a file of receipts. You just want to put together a share file where we just screen grab and then one day, 10 years from now, we'll read off all the names.
Yeah. Tune in, guys. Yeah.
Hang on. That's what we call a cliffhanger.
Yeah. Get ready for that episode.
That's 2 years, bi-weekly. It's about 260 episodes away from releasing the names.
So now that we've totally trashed, the conference finals, right? And fair enough, right? Because you have the Mavericks down 3-1. So it's going to be Warriors coming out of the West more than likely because no team has ever come back being down 3-0, which they were at one point, right? And then I think if we look at things, this is my own personal opinion, I think the Celtics will for sure move on to the finals only because the Heat are just so infinitely banged up. And then I'm a firm believer that if a team is able to steal a road win and go up in a series, I think that's extremely detrimental to the other team. And it's almost like the KO punch.
That's a wrap.
Because it's extremely hard to lose 2 after that, right? So
that's a wrap.
Yeah. Wait, you know what? I say that. Well, no, because the Suns didn't win any in Dallas, so never mind. Yeah, my point stands.
No, it was flipped. Even though we were dead wrong on that, and I know specifically I was talking you into no, like I don't know, I just have a good feeling. That was 100% the fan in me. It didn't turn out that way at all. And but I think these two are done. I think we're getting Celtics Warriors, and then wherever you want to take us on that journey, or if you want to at all.
Yeah, and I think America. Well, maybe not America, but the media will love that, right? You get the Warriors fans, you get old time Celtics fans. And I think, honestly, that's a pretty cool matchup, right? And part of me, obviously, being a Suns fan is like, the damn Warriors and Celtics again. God, bah humbug. But it's kind of a cool matchup because the Celtics, like you said earlier, are just such a good defensive team. And then the Warriors obviously just traditionally have been such a good offensive team, and it's a clash of styles. I think if I'm really going to pick one, and you probably won't like this, I think I'm probably going to go with the Celtics winning. And the only reason I'm saying that is because I believe defense does win championships. I think you saw that last year in the finals, and that's why the Bucks were able to beat the Suns was because they had a lot of really good defensive players, with Drew, Giannis, Chris Middleton's a decent defender. And the Celtics have the best defense in the playoffs right now. And then they do have guys that can go out and get a bucket, right? With Tatum, with Jaylen Brown. They have a lot of good glue guys. And as much as I would love to take the Warriors because I'm, West Coast guy, Steve Kerr's there, bear down, whatever. I just think Marcus Smart, as much crap as we've given him, that is a good matchup for him to guard Curry. He is a good perimeter defender. And then, the Warriors don't have a big man that they have to worry about. So Robert Williams can literally just, clog the paint. And then Clay isn't the Clay of the old. So you throw Jaylen Brown on him and he's locked up. And then the Jordan Poole minutes, you just kind of have to eat, right? You just kind of have to live with. And I don't really see a real way that the Warriors would be overcome that unless it's just Steph Curry magic, which don't get me wrong. We could totally see. We've seen it in the past. I just think the Celtics are the more complete team.
It's interesting. I'll say caveat number one is just purely to me, if the Celtics can and continue to remain healthy or healthy-ish at least. Yeah. That's a huge question in my mind, and I think, I think partly it's what I might be pulling for a bit because I really do like Steph, but I just think the Warriors are hungry. They want it. They've been there. I just like them. I like them to finish it. I just think that they're on a mission. I think those guys are focused. They're ready. and they just know what to do. Like just
Man.
plain and simple, they know what to do. I like the level Wiggins is playing at. I mean, he really has stepped up. He's not. If they give him the MVP in the finals, I'll probably lose my mind. But
Iggy
like, you can
2.0.
already see it. Like that's actually that's probably one of the funny things on Twitter is like Andrew Wiggins eyeing that MVP, Jordan Poole eyeing that MVP, Clay eyeing that. Look, man, it's going to be Steph. If the Warriors do win it, it's going to be Steph. It should be Steph. I think ultimately, I would put my money there. You know, if I had to lay claim to it, just take the experience, take the overwhelming talent. I still think the talent's on that side, even though I mean, you make a great case for the Celtics defense. The defense has been awesome all year, but I think the Warriors, when they focus, have done a pretty good job too. And that team's a little deeper than what they get credit for.
Yeah.
I mean,
they've done a good job drafting.
You see Kuminga show up, and you're like, man, that guy can play. Like that, he's eventually going to carve out a role in that team if he doesn't become a trade piece.
Yeah.
They're deep. So I like the Warriors. I'm with Chuck. I think I don't like their fans. I mean, if you're like if Chuck hurts your feelings, like you're just on the wrong side of history. Like America rides with Chuck, you know, like the NBA rides with the Warriors and Celtics, and they're going to be excited about that. The people's champ is Charles Barkley. And if you don't want to side with Charles Barkley, that's on you, because like he ain't here for you. He's here for America. He's entertaining us. He's making us laugh. You can't take him seriously. And that's where the Warriors take their L, in my opinion. You know, whatever reputation Warriors fans have is being chipped away at, and whatever they do in terms of a team, they can add to their destiny.
Yeah.
Dynasty, their destiny.
Talk
their
about
destiny.
good.
Maybe it is destiny.
Talk about good podcast content here, right? You taking the Dubs, me taking the Celtics. Since it ended up that way, and by the way, guys, we totally didn't plan this. We haven't talked about this at all, so pretty cool. Why don't we give a prediction then, right? I think this is definitely a series, health willing, right? I think it could go 7 games, so I'm gonna take the Celtics in 7 games. How about you?
Yeah, I'll just say Warriors in 7. I'd like to see 7 games. I'd like to see competitive games. It's certainly not going to break my heart either direction it goes, right? Like I don't really have a dog in the fight, but I'll ride with the West Coast, the Warriors, and Steph to add to his dynasty, his resume, if you will, of greatness.
Yeah. So why don't we do this, guys? So our listeners, if you're on Twitter, you can follow us at at Jump Shots from the Goal Line. Why don't you go ahead and put on Twitter #Team Dugan or #Team Henny, and let us know who you're riding with in the finals. If it ends up being Celtics Warriors, which it probably will be, and we will shout you guys out on the next pod. You can do that on Twitter. You can do it on Facebook. Or you can do it on Instagram. You can comment on our post with, Team Dugan or Team Henny. And I would love to see who thinks who is going to be right. The moment I think everybody's been waiting for, we kind of skipped over it because I wanted to save it kind of for maybe the end, at least the large chunk of the show. Let's go over the last round of the playoffs. Round 2, right? And obviously we could probably go through each series, but I think the majority of our fans probably want to hear our thoughts on the Suns and Mavericks series, because we literally had a podcast episode called the Luka Hate Party the last time we recorded. So, John, I don't know. You want to lead it off? Because I have a lot of feelings. I've written an article about it. So please, why don't you go ahead?
You did. And so the Luka Hate Party didn't work out for us. So anybody, friends and folks and listeners that reached out and said, suck it, I appreciate it. There are still plenty of Luka stans out there that says, hey, you guys have blinders on, man. You're seeing it all wrong. Well, I can tell you what I didn't see. I had no idea what the hell was going on in the Suns locker room. And apparently it's bad.
Yeah, real bad.
Whatever the hell is going on in there was real bad. Because, as all of America crapped on the Suns, and we all know, and deservedly so, like I am about to pile on as well. That was the worst Game 7 performance I've ever seen in my life.
Ever, bro.
For mostly healthy team, right? We'll call it at least playoff healthy. Maybe Chris had something. I don't really give a, like that's pretty lame. I don't really want to hear about
a quad,
straining a quad or whatever. I know Devin had a hamstring, maybe.
Come on,
like whatever. Forget all that, man.
With it.
Forget all of that. Exactly. These guys performed in the series, so that is all just gone. What happened in Game 7 was just disastrous. I mean,
John, let me tell you, you're listing all these injuries, but you know where the real injury lied? In their heart. That's where the main injury was, bro. In their damn heart. That's why we were losing by 48 points at home, Game 7, to go play the Warriors. That's where the injury was, bro. I don't want to hear about a quad because it's just another Chris Paul playoff injury. I don't want to hear about a hamstring because Booker was out there dropping 40 points with a strained hamstring. I don't want to hear about a strained brain with Ayton because he just can't get going.
So what's there then? So like we know, right? We all agree it was an all-time zero loser performance. So then maybe that's the next part that we talk about. Like where do you start to place blame? Where do you see holes in what happened? And obviously we can't know like some of the interpersonal dynamics, like although some of that stuff's leaking out, right? Maybe Monty and Ayton, there was a rift. Did that bleed into other relationships? Or where do you start to place blame? Like as you have eulogized this Suns team and as you started to process it, like where are you, just where are you pointing your finger? Like who are you yelling at? If you're alone and you're in a back room and you're cursing, like what names are coming out first for you?
Yeah. I think as a fan, I mean, the first rational answer we look to, right, is you look to the players first, right? So I think I look immediately at Chris Paul. I think he has to shoulder some of that blame, right? I understand being he's 37, being that we had to lean on him a lot during the regular season. And then, of course, a phantom injury pops up, which sucks so bad because Pat Beverly was the first one to be like, oh, watch, somebody's going to claim that they're injured. Ha, ha, ha. And, of course, Chris Paul comes out and said he has a quad injury, which, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't want to get into it. But his performance just all around, outside of like Game 1, where it was so cool watching as a Suns fan, him just kind of like slice and dice that defense, put Luka through the blender. That was cool. But then that was like the last cool moment of Chris Paul's like whole like playoff series.
Career.
I wasn't going to say career because,
I know, hopefully not. But like, that's like what jumps in my head. I'm like, is that the last time it's ever going to be good? Besides like regular, like, are we ever going to see good playoff CP again? I wonder, but
it's a tough look.
Can shelve it.
But having games in the playoffs, right? Even at his age, even whatever, when you're all NBA third team, which those just came out today, and you're putting up 5 points in a playoff game, and you're just getting roasted by Luka on defense, getting switched on, and you're not really making your teammates better, right? I think that's a tough look. So he's for sure getting like, when I'm pissed mad because we're losing or we just lost Game 7 by 1 billion points. Yeah, he was probably one of the first people I turned to. So that's number one. All right, so keep track. Number 2, DeAndre Ayton. And this is where you and I kind of differ, right? And
number 2, you go to Ayton right away?
2, yeah, I want to get after it. All right, let's get into it.
Oh, man. He gets like, so if you're breaking up the pie, though, you're saying like number 1, pie eater, Chris Paul, number 2, pie eater, DeAndre Ayton.
So this is initial, all right? So
I just want to make sure I'm writing it down.
Yeah,
I'm taking notes.
Yeah, so the note that, your
I'm
headline should be,
pie, basically.
The headline should be Dugan 7 beers deep, watching Game 7, crying into his wife's shoulder, okay? And then proceeds to yell. This is who I start to blame. So yeah, Chris Paul right away because he's supposed to be our leader. Number 2, DeAndre Ayton. And the reason why, okay, obviously I've been a Suns fan my whole life, right? And I graduated from the University of Arizona. For all intents and purposes, I should love DeAndre Ayton, okay? And for full transparency, I have a DeAndre Ayton jersey that I got right when he got drafted, okay? I hate wearing that jersey now, and I have for like a couple years. I did like wearing it in last year's playoffs because he did show up, but for the most part, the thing with DeAndre Ayton is he'll have one game where he's an absolute animal. You know, we talked about Bam Adebayo earlier. When Ayton's on, he makes Bam look like I don't know, like YMCA ball, right? He's so dialed in. He can defend the perimeter. He can defend the post. He can hit the mid range. He can even hit the occasional three. Post shots, like rebounds like a monster when he's dialed in. The problem being with DeAndre Ayton is he will have one game where he's like that and then 4 stinkers. And the thing that pissed me off the most about him in this Maverick series is you're playing a team whose 2 starting centers, not even starting, but the ones that get the most minutes are Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleber. Both those guys are like 6'9" and are just known for shooting threes. You know, not real defensive acumen guys, not real rough and tumble. And when you have DeAndre freaking Ayton, who is 7'1", 7 foot, just looks like an Adonis out there, and he isn't doing anything with it. And I know what you're going to say, John. He can't pass himself the ball. And you're right. You know, you are totally right. Yeah, and it's what he said. It's what he yelled
allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly that's what he yelled at Monty, right? And I get that. But you know what? There's some other things you can do on the court. Go out and get a freaking rebound. We got out rebounded in every game against the Mavericks to a team that has no big men. We got out rebounded. Go get a rebound. You know what? Call for the ball. Or when you get the ball, how about this? Don't turn away from the basket. I can't tell you. I'm 6'5". I'm a big man. And every time I would watch DeAndre Ayton get the ball, he would always not turn into the basket. He would turn away from it and do that midi, which I get. Okay, look, if you can shoot a midi over a guy that you're taller than, I get that. But if it ain't falling, you don't keep going to the well, especially when you are 4 inches taller than anybody else. Go be physical. Get to the line. Lord knows the refs wanted to use the whistle. And the whole series, he didn't do it, right? So that's my number 2 guy. Now, I know you have some talking points about Ayton, so I'll let you get them out before we move on.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, I mean, I don't know. We could talk about Ayton for like 45 minutes. And I think I do want to like almost tackle it in its own separate way. I'll just say that I think he kind of, for me, I'll just say that as far as like blame goes, I think we're on the same page with CP. Like, we brought him in. He's getting all the credit. He's getting the lion's share of the credit. So he's got to shoulder some of the blame here. And that's just the way it is. He's been around forever. He's going to go down as an all-time great. So he's going to have to shoulder that. I think Booker's getting away with it a little bit. However, so like I'd probably put it as Booker as number 2, just because he's really the star and the future star and the scorer and the franchise guy and the guy who is ultimately going to get a supermax. So I think, so I just think he has to take it the same way CP does. I mean, what do you end up with 11? I'm like, now it's been so long, but you know, he really didn't play well. And it, like you're talking about, like he's not really getting the other guys involved. He's really not getting his shot. And I think that can happen. Like it's his first game 7 I shouldn't say that, but is it? No, because he had a game 7 against the Lakers, but he's had minimal experience in these situations, or maybe that was a game 6 when they closed out the Lakers. But anyways, he's had minimal experience. Yeah, whatever the point being, like he's had minimal experience in some of these situations. They don't always go perfect, right? Like KD got eliminated this year. Does he suck? No. Does this mean Booker can't score? Does that mean he can't be a superstar? Does that mean he shouldn't get the supermax? No. Like I still believe in Book, and I think all Suns fans are willing to give him a pass for all the crap he's been through to get us to where we are, to just keep the franchise afloat, until Chris Paul was able to throw us another life raft. So I really look at it in that order. And then I think you can start to talk about Ayton. And I think I have the same complaints you do, right? I'd love to see him be more physical. I do think he lacks some awareness, and this is just kind of, he's he's 23, and I think these are part of the growing pains that you deal with, and this is why I've been watching like Bam so closely.
Yeah.
Is I see holes in his game too. And in the first couple of games, he was basically invisible, right? Like he really was. Like defensively, of course, he was still an anchor for them and was doing a lot of great things. He still can be an initiator of their offense, an important screener. But a lot of those things, frankly, Ayton mirrors, and he doesn't ever take the blunt. He tends to get the brunt of the blame here more in Phoenix than I assume Bam ever does. Now, I'm not listening to heat media all the time, so maybe Bam catches a little more heat locally than what I see nationally. But I do feel like Ayton's in this firestorm now, and obviously there's going to be conversation about his contract and whether he's up for trade and all these things, and we can get to that. But I think I would just flip. I assume Booker you'd put third, so I'd probably just flip those two and then start talking about the Mikal, Cam, and the rest of the bench. And then honestly, I'd probably get into a larger conversation about, I'm probably more honestly, like I'd probably actually move Monty somewhere. Like if you're saying players first, you want to rank it just by players, but then I start going Monty and James Jones, and then I go to Sarver. I'd much rather attack the front office and what's going on there more so than I put blame on these guys, because I thought there was just pieces missing around him, and I think there's just time that's going to take with Ayton for him to make those right things and do those right decisions. Like if Booker's getting the pass, I don't understand why Ayton isn't. He's younger, he's less experienced, he came into basketball later, and he's much more dependent on the way the other guys function to get his. So I'm definitely not as I'm not after Ayton at the same level you are. I kept my my torches at home.
Yeah, and look, here's the thing. I can go over individual players, right? It is what it is. They all had their faults. They all had their positives too, right? It wasn't all doom and gloom all the time, right? For the most part, it was, but it wasn't all the time. But
it's hard to get out of your mouth, but you're right. There's some good stuff that happened too.
But at the end of the day, it was the team, right? You don't win and lose with one player. It takes a team effort. And in this case, the Phoenix Suns lost due to a team lack of effort, right? I excuse me, I highlighted it on my article, but the Phoenix Suns that we're so used to watching all season long, right, as they went on to win 64 games, was a team that ran the 0.5 offense, right? And what that means for the people that don't watch Phoenix Suns games,
connected team. But
yes,
go ahead. Yeah.
A deep team, a connected team, a team that is going to whip the ball around until somebody gets open. And as soon as you get open, you shoot it, right? And we did that all year. And that's why we were so good, right? And that's why we were able to get the most out of each and every player. That's why the campaigns of the world were good in that system. That's why the Cam Johnsons of the world, had games like they had during the regular season. But it seemed to me, round one against the Pelicans, they just kind of fell asleep at the wheel, right? I don't think it was a real philosophical issue or anything like that, or coaching. Maybe, probably a little bit of a coaching issue, but it wasn't anything that they were doing differently. They were just doing it at a slower pace and just didn't give a shit, I guess. But against the Mavericks, that's something that I noticed, is that they really got away from what they did well, right? They did it well in game one, especially in the second half. But then as soon as the Mavericks started to change things up, as soon as the refs started to get involved a little bit more, and then especially as soon as Luka started making it more, like trying to put his imprint on the game, the Suns completely flipped what their offense was. All of a sudden, you didn't see the rapid style passing that we had seen in the past. You didn't see, guys taking open shots. You saw guys acting a little bit more timid because they weren't in the greatest form. And then you saw like people like Devin Booker, who, granted, I love Booker, and there's a time and a place for what I'm about to say that he should do this. But it seemed like almost every play he wanted to prove a point that he was better than Luka, right? And he wasn't whipping the ball around as much. He was taking some bad shots, and he was driving to the rim trying to get a whistle, not a bucket, right? And we've all seen players like that, right? Luka's kind of like that, but he gets away with it. They don't drive to the rim to get a bucket. They drive to the rim to gain a foul. And Booker started doing that, and it just threw the
Yeah,
whole
that's a
team.
part of his game, but he lost the balance, right? Like the
Yeah,
best part about
yeah.
Booker is that he mixes in all his games. So I think you're spot on with the way Devin approached the game. All of a sudden,
and it's not just Devin.
Took it personal, and I've been there. I've been in like that game where all of a sudden someone tries to get up under your skin, and you're like, it becomes personal for you, and you forget that there's 9 other players on the court and there's something going on. It becomes you, one other dude, and it becomes completely personal. And that's why I say, it's probably easier to forgive him. Like it's maybe like a more of an experience thing than
we forget.
whatever. So
it's only his second playoffs.
Just want to say, I think you're spot on with that part of it. And then but with the rest, the ball got flat. They didn't move it.
And it's not just him that was doing that. Let's make this clear, right? Now he had it for different reasons. Like him and Luka do have a little bit of a rivalry there, right? But the Suns team in general was hunting for fouls. And for a team that was like 29th in the league at foul shots attempted, to all of a sudden that's all they're focusing on, that should tell you that you need to know about this team. Like there's no reason why they should have deviated from their path. If they would have kept doing what they did all year, they would have been fine. But instead, I think they became a team where the year before they were driven and they were motivated to, by being an underdog, to now this year they almost expected to win, and that ended up being their downfall.
Yeah, and I think that's where – so I guess when do we talk about then? And because I think, divvying up the pie, we look at that part differently. So where do you want to go next? Because I think it's pretty obvious, and you outlined it in your article, that, hey, we missed – I really got to stop doing that, even though I know, like, that's how I feel. But the Suns really missed the ball – at the deadline in terms of like the pieces they added. There's nothing more exciting than trading back for a guy in Torrey Craig who you can't even use in this freaking series at the deadline. You add Aaron Holiday, who Monty seems afraid to play, even though he's sent Campaign into, our bench prison, and he can't get out either. He's Akon locked up, so he can't freaking touch the court. We know. I think we both would agree that like tons of mistakes are happening there, and then obviously we know it's a trash owner, and this is where if you're a Dallas fan and you've been having to listen to this, hey, great news, we're going to trash the front office, trash the owner, because that's how I feel. I feel like at every step of the way there was huge, massive failures. Whether and I think we should ultimately just kind of get into the Ayton piece because that's what's happened. That's the next thing, right? Like I think we can both agree the GM made mistakes, whether that's ownership related or whether it's just a misplay on their part in terms of the pieces that they thought they had, either coming off the bench or otherwise. I think maybe I would place more blame than you than on Monty. We haven't really talked about it a bunch, but I think Monty, like this was a huge failure. I thought Jason Kidd just outcoached him.
Which wild to say.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying
it's yeah, right. He won Coach of the Year, so it does sound wild. But at the same time, for the people out there that say like NBA coaching doesn't matter, Steve Kerr's won championships. He's in the Western Conference Finals. Jason Kidd's won championships as a player. He's in the Eastern Conference Finals. You saw some of the clips of him coaching his team defensively and getting them through that, actually to the point where he's bringing his team to this, the defensive side in the fourth quarter so that he can coach them through that. Well, little did he know he wouldn't need a fourth quarter, but he was ready to coach them through that and make sure that they were active, engaged, and listening. And he was going to be the focal point and the talking piece for that defense. He just outcoached Monty through and through. And then I think what I really want to get to is just like what's next with the Ayton piece, because this is where I get super frustrated with Monty as well. If you haven't found a way to connect and reach this kid, he's still a huge, valuable asset for this team. And regardless of what you think you want to do moving forward, and like you cannot handle it the way that it's handled. It's internal. No. Now the leaks are out. They were fighting. There was tension between those two. You can't lose one of your best assets, and then you can't trash your asset publicly I think he, in some ways, tried not to, and I guess there was just leaks, and so I don't want to just dump that all on him. But now I think we have a soiled asset that, in one form or another, we have to deal with, and so it's just a huge misplay by the front office. Like, in my opinion, in a lot of ways, I still would have loved to see him just give him the contract in the offseason so that maybe we could have avoided these potential issues. I think that's where some of the rub came from, and I don't know where you want to take it next. Like, do you want to talk about whether we want to trade him? Whether do you want to still talk about why there's tension, or do you just want to move it forward into what happens next? Because to me, the entire thing's a disaster. It's a disaster through and through, and it's back to Sarver sucks. Maybe Jones is limited, and then I think there's some failures on Monty's part. Kudos for the coach of the year and all the regular season success, but at the end of the day, this season was a failure.
Yeah, I'm not going to really go off on like Sarver, I'm not going to go off on him because like I like him or anything. My disdain for Sarver is well documented. I just don't think he played that big of a deal in like what James Jones did this time around. I highlighted it again on the article. By the way, guys, it's no longer Dugan Football. It's actually jumpshotspod.com to just go along with the podcast. But you can look on there at the article I posted. I actually highlighted the fact that I think it all centered around the trade deadline, right? I think they made some smart moves in the offseason, bringing in JaVale, getting Bismack Biyombo during the season was smart. I think getting Landry Shamet, even though I don't think it necessarily worked out completely, I think it was a smart move. But I think at the trade deadline, that's where James Jones is going to take the brunt of the blame, because this was a team that, I can sit here and pinpoint the fact that they played soft, and that's why they lost, and it's largely true. But it's also true that part of the reason they lost is because they didn't have any pop off the bench, right? I think we can both agree to that. Cam Payne had been hurt a lot of the year, never got into a rhythm, looked very bad in the playoffs. Cameron Johnson similarly missed a lot of games during the regular season, looked bad for large parts of the playoffs. Landry Shamet, not really a type of guy that's going to go out and get his own bucket. Our backup centers, same thing, not the type of guys that get their own bucket. What really perturbed me about James Jones' decision-making was the simple fact that the hot rumor was Eric Gordon from Houston coming to Phoenix, right? And this is the second time that Suns fans have been absolutely blue-balled by Eric Gordon. If anybody remembers, he was on the Pelicans at one point. We had a whole cutout for him, and they did the whole, bells and whistles.
Or if you're unfamiliar with blue ball, the Urban Dictionary, check it out.
Yeah, check it out. Ask a friend. Anyway, he was as good as ours as anything, right? He was going to be a Phoenix Sun, and then the Pelicans decided to match his restricted offer sheet. So anyway, this is the second time he's come around in Suns lore, where on a rebuilding Houston team, shooting, I think 47% from three or 43% from three, just really, really hot from three this year.
This team needs shooting. If you don't watch them, they need shooting in a way that you wouldn't think.
Yeah. Shooting like 41% from the field, which isn't terrible for a volume shooter, right? But Houston was trying to move off of him, obviously, because they're rebuilding. They don't really need a guy like Eric Gordon, 33 years old. They don't need him. But the Suns needed that six-man, create your own offense kind of guy, can maybe even orchestrate the offense, which Eric Gordon totally can. And another big thing, right, is he played for Monty Williams in the 0.5 offense in New Orleans, right? The guy's familiar with Monty's system. And all that Houston wanted was a first-round pick, a future first-round pick. And, I kind of understand James Jones's hesitancy at first, right? You just gave up a pretty good amount of first-round picks to get Chris Paul. And you don't want to, really kill your future self for a guy that you're probably only going to have for this year. But for me, you see a team that is so close to winning a finals the season before, and it's so evident throughout the season that all they need is that prolific guard off the bench. You trade that first round pick, and I feel like if they would have done that this year, we probably would have gone the whole way. I don't know. What do you think, John?
Yeah, it's hard to say, how much better, but it's definitely a roster improvement. We know that much.
Which they didn't do.
Yeah, and they're not being graded on the regular season. It's nice. It's that's weird. It's like it's a great team that rallied around Monty and had a bunch of regular season success, which means a bunch of people are going to get paid based on awards that they won and accolades that they received and all those things. But we'll keep saying it. What it boils down to is postseason success. You were a team that was 2 wins away from a championship against Giannis, who still seems superhuman. And, barring an injury, I'm not sure we're not talking about the Bucks still coming out of the East. So it's definitely a problem for Jones. And I cannot get past the fact that we're talking about James Jones in trading a pick. He hasn't exactly nailed the draft. I mean, it's not like this guy's a draft guru. Like,
besides
he drives
Cam
his
Johnson.
success. Yeah, it's not that he's been terrible, right? It's not even that he's had all failure, but he's also had some misses, and he seems to put his faith and his trust and his relationships, even for that matter, in veteran players and in proven commodities and guys that understand the system, buy in, et cetera. And then to kind of cling, like out of fear or otherwise, when I think his job's pretty safe, to a first round pick it's just frustrating. You're so close. You only get so many chances to be the team, right? You can always be a team. And I understand that, it's kind of like putting, right? You just want to put it in the area near the hole and hope it falls in. And I think that's kind of what James Jones has been doing. And he clutched his pearls a little bit when it came to his picks. But yeah, it's heartbreaking because we're close. Whether Gordon puts him over the top or not, I don't know. But it definitely makes him a hell of a lot more competitive. It also gives them a different look when you're talking about, Dallas going 5 out on you. And this is where maybe we can swing it back to the Ayton conversation and what you do next. I don't think it's like a full indictment on Ayton the way the series played out. I think you're gonna face teams that do this 5 out that put you in some stress points, and you're going to have to either find a way to utilize your big to make them pay, or you're going to suffer the consequences as a group, and not having another piece or another match to go to, or that piece being Shamet, and that being where the money went in terms of an extension is like, I could just go on and on about these conversations. So I think it's really, we just know that the end result is not an A+ at minimum. So now it's like, what do you do next? And do you trust James Jones to handle this correctly with Ayton? Because regardless of how you feel about Ayton, again, he's one of your best assets. He's a guy you took as a number 1 pick. And so now what do we do? You have to continue to build this roster. You have to continue to, now it's proven that the roster is flawed. Now we know we have an end result. So what's the move now? And I feel like you're ready to move on from Ayton regardless. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I'll let you speak your piece on that. But I'm not there. I still think Ayton's as good as the pieces we're going to have, and I'm not really ready to move on unless, we have something else in hand. And I've got a list of people that I think we, this name, or this name shows up. Like, sure, we can move on from Ayton, but otherwise, let's figure this thing out. Let's patch this relationship. This guy's 23 years old, and then let's play ball again and see if something like Eric Gordon makes the difference. Because if you think he makes a difference, then why? Then what's the conversation around Ayton moving forward for you?
Yeah, I'm not going to put a bow on it and say, oh, I absolutely want to trade Ayton. Like anything, right? It depends on what you get back. And it also depends, too, on if that relationship can be rebuilt. It depends on what Ayton's dedication levels are post getting paid. The famous first lines of Ayton's career was, hey, what are you looking forward to in your career? And he said, my first contract. right? And it's kind of proven true. But I guess it just depends. If you're able to go out and get a Kevin Durant, by doing a sign and trade, sure, you do it all day. If you're talking more like Devin Vassell and Jacob Pertl, I think I'd rather keep Ayton and just roll the dice. And if it doesn't work out, you trade him at the deadline, right?
It's going to be
or
a no for me,
next
dog.
off season. I think where we differ is just maybe the value chart in terms of like I see it a trade offer like with Indiana, where if we're able to swing a deal for like Malcolm Brogdon and like a good pick and like a filler, like I think that's a good deal, right? Because I think the capability of having a Malcolm Brogdon behind somebody like Chris Paul and then getting an early enough pick to just continue padding the youth, I think that's smart because of two things. Chris Paul's not getting any younger, and we're going to need a future point guard. And Malcolm Brogdon, as of 2 years ago, was seen as like one of the best point guards in the league, a 50, 40, 90 guy, and could still be. I mean, he was linked to the Suns at one point. And then
Super
another
efficient,
thing,
but health problems. Can I do this?
Look at the teams.
Why don't we do
in the
this? Like,
playoffs
can I
right
run
now.
you through
None of them
some
have
of
a star
the
big
some of the
man.
trades that I've heard floated, or I should just say names. Like, let's not pretend to be a cap expert, but some of the names that have been floated out there, and then we'll just start with like pie in the sky, and then work our way back, and then like when is your threshold for? Yeah, I'm good with that to move Ayton.
Okay.
You down for a little game? So Durant, obviously, right? If we have an opportunity to move Durant, which would obviously, I will say that's all tied to Kyrie, right? If the Nets move on from Kyrie, then does Durant wield enough power to throw around his weight and ask for a move? I think if you're, then it's really just about like who else are you willing to throw in, because I think we both agree if you can get Kevin Durant, you're taking that 7 days a week, and it's like who's Ayton by, right?
Yep.
There's the Dame stuff. I think that one's really just kind of stupid fodder. I don't think anything's realistic about that, and I think the fit's kind of weird.
That would have to be a third, like a 3-team trade where you offload.
Yeah, I think that one's too complex.
An odd move.
Yeah, I think that one's too complex. But because Dame's kind of come to CP's defense and some other guys' defense, that some Suns fans are like,
weird.
Did that happen? Yeah, but that one doesn't really make sense to me. So I think you can kind of throw that out. Durant, I think in a weird way, it's probably more like leverage than anything else.
Could happen.
Some of that stuff, but it's maybe possible.
He loves Phoenix. He loves Devin Booker. So
I'm trying to think of it. So one other guy that's been interesting that was floated out there, and I think it's simply because his situation's equally awkward. What about making some sort of move or play for Zion?
I don't love it.
Okay, so you're out on Zion.
I say it, and then it's one of those things where like it comes back, right? Because you can ask any of my friends, like I trash Zion because I'm just like, this dude is 6'6", 280, jumps out of the freaking arena, but like as soon as he lands, he's gonna get injured. And like largely I'm right. But God, when he's healthy, he's so dominant. I just don't know if his style of basketball also really lends itself to like winning a championship, because he's similar to Giannis, except he's 60 pounds heavier. Because he doesn't really have a shot, right? He doesn't have a 3-point shot. He doesn't really have
a spacer. He does solve the problem of creation though, because you can go point Zion, and we've seen that work. Yeah. So I mean, the nice thing is, Zion's interesting. He's just an interesting piece. It's a name that was floated out there. Obviously, there's a rub there. I don't really think that's going to be a reality any more than some of the other names we mentioned, but it's an interesting one to keep an eye on. Things can change quickly. Agents get involved. Weird things happen. Classic NBA stuff. I think just to cover a few other groups that I think make sense. We mentioned the Pacers, and you mentioned Brogdon. I do think it makes sense besides the injury history. You already touched on it, so I don't want to. I hate that roster, and I don't really get excited about a 6th pick. So I think what's more interesting to me is taking a look at something like, does OKC have a package? Maybe they can throw a couple picks in a guy. It's interesting. It's hard to
But
know.
who do they have that you want? Like they're not going to give up
Yeah,
Shy.
no, I know that's what's tough. It's like and this is where I end up saying keep Aiton. And then if there's a move at the deadline, maybe there's a move at the deadline. But I think they've kind of heard.
What about this one?
Yeah,
How
throw something
about
at me.
Jeremy Grant? Jeremy Grant from Detroit. Like you
Yeah,
get
Jeremy
Jeremy
Grant's
Grant
interesting.
and like
What is it?
some
Pick
other
5.
guys. Yeah, I think so.
If they give me pick 5 and Jeremy Grant, I mean, I think that's worth listening. You add another
He's
wing.
good.
Maybe you can move off of maybe move off the Crowder deal, or maybe you move off
Yeah.
of, do you sign Cam again? Do you extend Cam? So I mean, there's a lot out there. Basically, what I just don't want to see the Suns do is just lose the asset. You
Yeah,
can't lose
just to
the
lose it.
asset, and you have to capitalize. This guy was someone you spent a number 1 pick on. He's 23 years old. He's a 23-year-old big man who picked up basketball late. There's no way that you shouldn't be capitalizing maximum value and turning yourself into a team that you think is going to win basically 60 games again. Or if you think they're going to win 50 because you're going to approach the season differently and you're going to have a different type of playoff run, that's fine. But if not, I'm keeping that piece, and then we have to clean it up in-house because there's just no way you go from 64 wins to we got to move off this guy because he had a bad game 7 when the whole team, as we discussed, had a bad game 7. That's my greatest fear, is that
Yeah.
they're going to punt on a great asset. And I know you don't want that either. No one does, but it's been easy to trash Ayton, and that's kind of been the talk around town. And man, I just really hope we don't blow it from an asset standpoint. And to me, if you have to bring him back in the building, like, so be it. Let's bring him back in the building. He's still 23. He's still 18-10. He's still probably top 40, top 50 guy in the league, which, generally is going to speak to you're going to get paid. So, and you can move contracts in the NBA. We see it all the time. Look, we're going to hear Russell Westbrook trades get floated all year, and everybody knows no one wants to touch that thing, but then those deals get moved. So, nothing's impossible. In a worst case scenario, if you think that's a worst case scenario, bring him back. But to me, we just can't punt on the asset. Have to figure something out that makes sense. And
one more trade idea.
I love
Mitchell Robinson and Julius Randle.
Yeah. I mean, I do think it's no. I mean, I don't think it's terrible. Like, I don't think it's terrible. I don't know if those numbers work. I mean,
probably.
I guess I don't really have to, but yeah. But
yeah,
I mean,
figure it out.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's always ways to. Yeah, things can always work. You can get a third team involved if the numbers don't work immediately. I mean, I don't love Randall's game. Mitchell Robinson certainly interesting. Especially playing
with
CP. Like, he'd play better with CP. He definitely is a rim protector for sure. And then you get a little bit more playmaking with Randall. He's had to shoulder that load with less talent around him, certainly. So, I mean, there's interesting moves out there, which is why that's all I'm saying. Yeah, you can't have me at the 6th pick. The idea of these picks is not that exciting to me. One, I don't trust James Jones to draft, frankly. And 2, it's not necessarily because of James Jones. Like, this, it's just hard to draft. If you look at the draft,
we'll never forgive James Jones for taking sticks over the likes of Halliburton and Static Bay,
and using that to get Torrey Craig back after you didn't sign him. Like, it's a tragedy of errors.
That's an all-time blunder.
It is a tragedy of errors. And so, for all the great things that he's done, and obviously these have been as fun of Sun seasons as I could possibly have asked for after years and years and years of pain, it's still painful, and it's almost worse. It was easier when I just shut them out of my brain rather than go through the scene that was Game 7 of the Maverick series this year.
You're telling me. I don't think, you were saying it earlier that it might be the worst Game 7 of your entire life, but I think for me it's my worst playoff anything in my entire life. I'm thinking like football. Okay, Ravens have had some interesting losses. You can look back to the Titans game, whatever. Not too bad. I think about baseball, like I don't really even remember any playoff losses, except I do remember the Braves getting beat by the Cardinals a couple of years ago, like 11 runs in one inning. That was bad. But nothing, and I mean nothing, hurts as bad as watching a team that I thought was a surefire finals pick get absolutely destroyed by 48 points by somebody like Luka Doncic. That'll sit with me for a long time.
I don't disagree, but I've watched some missed field goals. I've seen a Brady interception turn into a fumble. The Chargers are pretty painful. So
It's true. This is my first taste of like a Chargers fan.
the Illinois game, as an Arizona fan, forever burned in my heart.
That's bad too.
I can tell you about it.
Sure.
I can. Yeah, I'm not familiar with Greek tragedy, but I am familiar with the latter part of that statement for sure. So, it's definitely up there though. It's just it was tough about that. It just wasn't competitive. Like it's almost
from the jump.
Yeah, it's like there's some you do at least get a badge of honor for at least like having been through it and then not being able to finish late and just being like, oh, it was everything but that moment. But to just do whatever that was.
Luka had as many points as the entire team at halftime. Like he can throw that in our face for his entire career. That's what hurts. That's the worst part.
Yeah, his little European grin. It's brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal.
At least you're going to Dallas here pretty soon. That'll be fun for you.
And I do appreciate the recommendations on, rocking the Suns jersey, throwing on a little gear. But I don't, I actually have no problem with actually doing that outside of, it being a professional occasion. And I'm not sure sleeveless is the move. But I'm not afraid to walk into Dallas. It's a cultureless void. So I have no fears there.
Ouch. Jesus, that was tough. All right. Well, hey, let's wrap it up. Obviously we went over the first couple rounds. Nothing really NFL going on at this time. Obviously, I think
Kaepernick's working out, bro. That's big
Kaepernick.
time.
Hey, that Kaepernick is working out with the Raiders.
Oh my gosh.
Good
Discuss
for them.
amongst yourselves. Discuss amongst yourselves.
We'll see what happens. By the way, just so nobody gets the wrong idea, we all hope that he gets a shot somewhere. I mean, at least I do.
Yeah, I do too. I think I just make fun of it in the fact that we've done this story, I feel like 17
times.
So I just don't have an opinion on it. I'm gonna allow you guys, as a group to just talk amongst yourselves on that one.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. But I think right now the only thing going on right is like OTAs. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully there are no like massive injuries that always typically happen in OTAs. Like I'm seriously knocking on wood with that one. But yeah, no real NFL news to talk about. We're not going to talk about baseball or hockey on this podcast. I'm sorry. It's just not what we do. You're listening to the wrong podcast. Find another one, But other than that, we will maybe come back to you next week. Maybe this is news to John, by the way, but John's going to be out of town and I would love to get another episode out before he leaves. So maybe you'll have another podcast here soon. But until then, guys, please check out the Instagram, Jump Shots from the Goal Line on Instagram. Check out the Twitter page, Jump Shots Pod. Check out the website, jumpshotspod.com. And check out the Facebook, Jump Shots from the Goal Line. We are everywhere now.
Yeah, and you can find hockey and golf there. Dugan doesn't let me bring it on the podcast, but it's there. There's like a little bit of hockey. I have no idea what I'm talking about or what's going on exactly, but it's kind of fun to watch. I like hockey playoffs, and the golf tournament. The PGA Championship was pretty epic on Sunday in its own weird way. I hate to see someone melt down, but big name player comes through and wins. So there's a little bit of content out there, but if you're tuning in for the baseball, golf, and hockey, it's probably going to be a lot of sad days for you.
I will say this: if Max Domi gets just absolutely annihilated in this Rangers and Carolina series, we will talk about it on the next podcast. I promise you that. And John has no idea what I'm talking about, but John, just go to YouTube and look up Max Domi hit, and you'll know what I'm talking about. It's pretty top notch. Other than that, guys, I will say.
That's my
Yeah,
hockey name. Just want to get one out just so people know I'm plugged in.
You know, a hockey player. Congrats. I did want to point out, if we do a podcast next week, John will have some top tier content to point out, something about a yacht race. So be on the lookout for that.
Big time. Yeah. We'll make sure that we lower the floor again. And I think, it was almost too much sports today. I would say we probably aired a little too much on the side of sports, and we'll get back to more nonsense.
Yeah. Until then, guys, please like, subscribe, and share this podcast. Please leave a review. It does help us with the algorithms, pushing our podcast forward, reaching more listeners like yourself. And that's why we do this, right? We want to hear from you guys. We want to make your day a little bit better, your morning drive or your workout at the gym. If we can make that a little bit better just with our sports talk, that's what this is all about. So please leave a review. Please subscribe. Please share. Please visit the websites. Please comment on the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the Twitters. Please interact with us. We would love to interact with you. But until then, we will talk to you later.